High court ruling on puberty blockers protects teenagers, says woman who sued the NHS. 3 judges say children under 16 years old must be able to give their competent consent and understand the treatment they are about to receive. If you've been following the ongoing debate among trans-identified youth, puberty blockers, HRT, surgeries, then you might remember a young woman named Keira Bell. Keira was suing the Tavistock Gender Clinic in the UK. At age 16, she went on puberty blockers and then on testosterone after only 3 visits to the clinic. I literally had to go see my psychologist more times before I went on antidepressants for my anxiety. Just saying. Since then, she has now detransitioned, and she says that she wants to bring more attention and protection to teens that think they have gender dysphoria, but might not.
Just explain to us, you suffered gender dysphoria as a girl.
Yes.
And you felt that you wanted to transition to become a man.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
When I first arrived at the clinic, you know, my belief, you know, that I was a boy, or, you know, that I should become a boy, was affirmed. You know, there was no investigation into why I had those feelings.
A few months back, we actually saw a ton of trans YouTubers calling out this specific clinic, saying that it was way too lenient in its diagnoses.
Felt that they had let you have access to the drugs too quickly.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
And that you should have been denied that because you weren't making a sound judgment.
Yeah, that's right. I was dealing with a lot of other mental health issues, also past issues that hadn't been brought up, or again, it wasn't investigated. So,
and we still see this sort of thing happening around the United States as well. That it inevitably would lead to a ton of teenagers detransitioning. Tons of mainly young women are detransitioning now after a few years of going on puberty blockers or testosterone or having surgeries or all 3. So what did the judges of the Keira Bell case agree on?
3 judges have said that children aged 13 and under are highly unlikely to be able to give their competent consent for treatment. They also said that it was doubtful that 14 and 15-year-olds would understand the long-term risks of gender reassignment treatment. And after the ruling, the Tavistock and Portman NHS Trust, at the centre of much of the controversy itself, suspended new referrals for puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones for under 16s. Keira Bell, commenting on the judgment, said, "This judgment is not political, it's about protecting vulnerable children. I'm delighted to see that common sense has prevailed."
delighted at the judgment of the court today. It was a judgment that will protect vulnerable people. I wish it had been made for me before I embarked on the devastating experiment of puberty blockers. My life would be very different today.
I think the first thing is, from my standpoint, an individual's gender identity is their own business. If they come to a physician's office asking for hormones or surgeries to change the physical appearance of their body to resemble the opposite sex, physicians are under an ethical obligation to only offer interventions that have been proven to be more beneficial than harmful. This is the way all of medicine operates. And in the case of puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries, for gender dysphoria, that's never been shown. I think that clinicians who promise relief from gender dysphoria with these interventions are doing a grave disservice to patients. I think probably one of the most significant consequences of overselling these interventions that could prevent that individual from seeking out counseling that could be extremely beneficial, especially if that person has significant depression, and also could prevent that person from seeking counseling that could help them understand the root of their dysphoria.
I said it before in videos, if I was growing up today, I would literally have thought that I was also transgender. I never got along with any of the young girls. I never wanted to be one of the girls. I wanted to be one of the boys. I also knew that I liked women, and I didn't know that you could like women as a woman, so I thought that I should have been born a boy so I could like women. I hated my body, so I can't even imagine what today's kids are going through. The judges also went on to say this.
Patient numbers at the Tavistock Clinic in the UK rose from 97 in 2009 to 2,519 in 2018. We know from FOI data that referrals to Victoria's Royal Children's Hospital Gender Clinic rose by more than 1,700% between 2012 and 2019.
So with the ongoing surge in supposed cases of gender dysphoria, and of course coming with it a surge in treatments for that gender dysphoria, even now, even putting all of this in, keeping all of this in mind and recognising just what's going on here, and in the case of Keira Bell and others, even now, most activists are still fighting for a if you say you're trans approach. Stonewall, a UK not-for-profit, is actively taking this as an attack on trans people, talking it up as an assault on trans people. Finally, some clinics and physicians and a ton of older transsexual people are disagreeing with all of it.
I'm so glad that this treatment wasn't available when I was a child. If it was, I would have taken it, and I wouldn't have had 3 children of my own. We don't let children have vasectomies or hysterectomies just because they think that they might not want to have children later in life, and we shouldn't be giving the children these choices either. It puts them in an impossible position, having to make adult decisions before they can possibly know what it means to be an adult.
We also saw the LGBT Alliance tweet about why certain supposed LGBT not-for-profits were not standing by a lesbian who regretted her transition. They said, why didn't Stonewall support young lesbian Keira Bell? Instead, Stonewall made a request to intervene against her. The judges turned down their request and that of Mermaid Gender, which is another not-for-profit standing for trans youth, I believe, as neither had factual evidence to bring. Time for a serious think. What happened to Stonewall? But we did see a ton of support for Keira Bell on social media. So as promised, I do have a few detransitioned women here to share their stories with you. Each case is individual, no story is the same. My point when making these videos is not to delegitimize transgenderism. It is a real thing. My point is to make sure that people and teenagers and kids understand what they're going through, what they're going to put their body through. I've never been a fan of children transitioning. I stand with Blair White on this stance, as well as a number of other transsexual transgender YouTubers. I think that people under the age of like 16, let's say, should be able to socially transition, go by different pronouns, change the way they dress, the name that they use in social situations. I don't think it's a good idea for children to transition biologically. It has been proven that the brain doesn't develop fully until the age of 25. A lot of people actually outgrow gender dysphoria. It might not even be gender dysphoria, it might be body dysmorphia, which is very common in young women, which is why it makes sense that so many young women think they have gender dysphoria these days. But again, it's not to delegitimize actual transgenderism, which in my opinion is probably, and I think has been proven, that you're born that way. I will see you guys back here in a few days with another video. Until then, love you. Love yourselves. Let me know what you think in the comments.